Hello, my name is Lacking a Name, and today I am drawing my character Levita from my webcomic Gnosis. Levita is out on a bit of a monster hunt, and as you can see, she's got a very good taste in weaponry, rocking the Unga Bunga hammer. So, in spirit of out in the wilderness hunting monsters, I thought I'd share a couple of camping stories with you today that I had growing up. So when I was 12 years old, I joined the Boy Scouts program and went on my very first camp out with them during that, shortly after joining. So me and my dad, we go on the camp out, and there's kind of a 12-year-olds, so there's kind of two different age groups there. You got the 12-year-olds and then like the 13-year-olds within this camping group, and then a couple of leaders and some dads that came out with them. And we lived in Utah at the time, so we went to a place to camp called Antelope Island. Antelope Island is a 40-ish mile island in the middle of the Great Salt Lake. And Antelope Island is well known for having a particular animal on it, and that is buffalo. So yeah, Antelope Island, you go there and you see buffalo. That's how it works. So, this is my very first camp out with this group, and we sit around the campfire, Phil telling some scary ghost stories, and decide, well, it's time to go to bed. So, me being in the group of 12-year-olds, a lot of us, this is relatively our first camp out. So, we grab a tent to set up, but we grabbed the wrong tent. The tent we grabbed didn't have a solid door to zip up, it only had the mesh door to zip up, which meant that we got to look out into the night all night and see kind of what was out there running around in the dark and the stars and things like that, which sounds really good, except for that first part. What is running around out there in the dark? So we're going to bed and waiting for the trying to get to sleep, and the older boys are just making a whole bunch of noise, so we can't get to sleep. So me and the other kid, we get up and we go to tell them to be quiet, that we're trying to sleep. And as we're going back to the tent, I go in, and the kid I'm with, he's looking out there and he sees something on the ground, and he ducks into it and goes, guys, there's something out there. I'm like, what? There's something out there. And we look out and we see just this thing on the ground just scurried behind this bush, and we're like, there's something out there. There's a baby buffalo. There's a baby buffalo out there. And I pull out this flashlight. Come on, let's see. Let's put a light on it. See if it's scared away. And this kid, he's just, no, don't shine the light on it. Do you remember Jurassic Park? This kid got to see Jurassic Park for the very first time a week before going on this camp out. So he thinks it's like with the T-Rex, that it's going to be attracted to the light and come charge it. And so we argue back and forth about, that's a movie, that's stupid. And finally they let me shine the light on. We're shining around, and whatever it is gone. The baby buffalo is gone. We missed my chance to see a baby buffalo. So we lay down and trying to go to sleep, and I'm just laying there kind of drifting off. I hear this sound. What's that? It's like there's something scraping against the tent. I'm thinking, did the baby buffalo come back? Like, hey, you guys hear that? Like, shh. Yeah, we hear that. And so we're just kind of listening, trying to be quiet as this scratching sound starts working its way around the tent. And I'm thinking, that there's something right next to our tent, and all of a sudden, blah! My dad popped around the corner and scared us by making a loud noise. Boy, did he get us. We all jumped up, just, ah! I mean, probably not like that, but it's a little, ah! We were scared. And he's just laughing like, that's not funny. I was like, yeah, it is. So, what had happened is that when we went to bed, he decided he wasn't quite tired. So he waits for us to go to sleep, and he starts crawling around. And he's sneaking up on our tent when he sees us come out, so he's holding still. And as we go to get back in, the kid I'm with spots him, and he hears him goes, guys, there's something out there. And he goes, oh, crud. So he scurries off behind the bush and works his way down this hill so he can move freely without us seeing him. And so he's listening to us argue and shine the flashlight around and eventually settle back down and go back to bed. So by this time, he has worked his way up next to the tent, and he hears that we're quiet, we're not worked up anymore. So he starts scratching on the tent, and he hears us, hey, did you hear that? And just scratching along and getting us more worked up, and then boom, scares us. So great success for him. So he goes off back to his tent, and he's laying there going to sleep, and he hears us yelling, "That's not funny! We can see you out there! We know you're behind a bush!" Just laughing to himself. Boy, if they only knew. So yeah, maybe there really was a baby buffalo out there in the dark. So that set a really high watermark for our first camp out of just the fun that could be had on it. And it pairs very nicely with another camp out that happened like 2 or 3 years later. So, 2-3 years go by. It seems like forever, but when you're a kid, but now that, when you're grown up, it's like 2 or 3 years. Like, oh gosh, that's all just kind of blurred together. Was that last month? But yeah, no, when you're a kid, that was like a lifetime ago. So I'm like 15 or 14 now, and we're on another camp out. And this camp out is going to be a whitewater rafting camp out. So it's a night before we go onto the river, and so we're just kind of at the campground. We got some tents set up, and I have 2 friends who they got their own tent. They were cousins, so they brought their own tent to share. And my dad's with me again on this camp out. He came on a lot of campouts with me. He's a really fun dad that way. And we're deciding that, you know what, we're not quite tired. Let's go have some fun. And so it was doing this fun little excursion that I learned how the baby buffalo works. So my dad, being a mechanical engineer, he had some custom gun orders that he worked for with the Green Berets, and he took the time to learn some tricks and stuff from them about how to sneak and things like that. And he taught me some of them. So a good method for sneaking in general is the heel-toe method. And that is when you go to take a step, you don't put your foot flat on the ground. Instead, you put your heel on the ground and then your toe. And doing this method, it makes it a lot harder to get that kind of thump or slap sound as you take a step. So you can move a lot more quietly. And then, if you're sneaking through an area, you just kind of wait until there's ambient sound like wind or a vehicle or whatever going by to move around. To help muffle yourself further. So we sneak our way up to their tent, where I learned how to scratch on the tent. And that is, you don't use your hand. If you use your hand and scratch on the tent, when someone slaps the tent, they'll hit your hand and they'll know something's there. So instead, what you do is you grab a long, thin twig and you scratch on the tent with that. And so that way, when they slap the tent, this twig will give away and they won't feel it. And so that way you could keep scratching it, and I'm getting them worked up because they can't really tell where you are. So I'm on one side of the tent and he's on the other. And we start scratching. Hey, I think there's something out there. And he scratches the other side. Like, there's something out there. And we just keep going back and forth and slowly start working our way towards the front of the tent. And we see them turn their flashlight on. Now, a flashlight inside the tent does not work very well. All it does is show who's ever outside the tent where you're probably looking. In order to see what's outside your tent, you need to actually be seeing their shadow. So what do is you would have your tent, the thing you're trying to see outside your tent, and then the light source behind the thing you're trying to see. So that way a shadow is being cast on the wall of your tent. And that is what you actually see when there's something outside your tent. So having a flashlight inside your tent does nothing. You can't see outside of it with that. So we work our way up to the front of it, and they get there and we grab the tent, shaking, and they lost it. We hear them just, and then we see that flashlight just fly up into the air and just spin, zipping around. It was great. They absolutely But they absolutely lost, and they opened a tent expecting to see some other kids there, and it's me and my dad, and like, that's not funny. Like, yeah, it is. It's funny. So we found out that as they're going to sleep, one of them says to the other, if you're an axe murderer, you could just come into this campsite and kill everyone when they're asleep. Good night. So it just couldn't have been any more perfect. But that's not where the camping story ends. No. That gets one-upped the next day when we're whitewater rafting. So there's a few principal characters in this story coming up. And I guess I'll give them the code name when I come up to that, or to them. So we go down this river, and we get onto basically the onboard ramp of the river, paddle our way down to go through some of the little rapids that they had and whatnot. I mean, it wasn't anything big. I never got knocked out of the boat. My dad got knocked out at one part, and I grabbed and pulled him back in. It was a lot of fun. Get on the off ramp, and then we go back up because we have some more time. Well, we got time. We'll go down it again. So get on the off ramp, go back up, and get back on the on ramp again. So we're paddling our way down, go through the rapids, and we are told that there's a spot where you could do some cliff jumping. It was like, maybe like a 6 to 10 foot cliff. It wasn't really that high. And you can jump off that into the water and be fine. And we were with a older group of boys. They were probably like 16, 17, and we're 14, 15. And so they had gone ahead of us, and they had been jumping off this thing for a while when we paddle up. And so we get off to go and jump to him. We're kind of in a line waiting our turn. And the first kid of our group, he goes and he jumps off it. And this kid, we'll call him Stitches because of what happens. He hits the water, comes up, and he's holding the shin. And we're thinking, hey, Stitches is hurt. Well, one of our leader, he was next line. And so he quickly runs and jumps off it. And we'll call him Bob because he hits the water and he doesn't come back up. So then we have our leader taking charge. Our hero of the story goes, all right, no more jumping. All right. So I was disappointed that I didn't get to jump. And so our hero, he's trying to figure out what's going on. So he's ushering us all back to the boat, and he looks over at one of the leaders that was with the older group of boys he had been standing there for 20 minutes, working himself up to jump. And he just looks at him, their eyes meet, and he just goes, I can't stop you. So this older guy, he runs and launches himself off a cliff into the water, comes up just fine, smiling. He had done it, he had worked himself up, and he had done the young man's jump. So, and nothing bad happened. So, good for him. So our hero, he's looking around, and he sees Bob come up out of the water a ways down. Hence why I'm naming him Bob, because he bobs out of the water like 20 feet down river. It's like, okay, Bob is fine, onto Stitches. So he runs down there ahead of us, and Stitches gets Stitches out of the water, takes off his shirt and covers Stitches' shin. So we can't see what happened to Stitch's shin. So we know he's hurt, but we don't know how bad. So we decide, all right, we're going to get a group of people that are going to speed paddle down to the off ramp and figure out what we're going to do from there. So a couple of groups that were ahead of us got word that we had someone who was hurt. So they passed that along on the off ramp. So by the time we got to the off ramp, the park ranger comes up and she's like, all right, let's see how bad it is. And so the hero, he takes off the shirt that's on Stitch's leg, and she grabs her walkie, and she stops. She goes, I don't know if I should call this in. And the rest of us see Stitch's shin. What had happened is he had jumped off sideways, and so he hit the rock that was under the water, and it gouged his shin to the bone. So we could see like the layers of skin and muscle all the way down to the bone there. But Stitches never saw it, so he doesn't know how bad it is. So he's just sitting there kind of smiling because he for all he knows, it's just a scrape that just hurts. And so we decide. So the the Bob and other people, the leaders, they talk a bit and they decide, well, he's not in shock, so we're just going to drive him to the hospital. So they load up Stitches into a car, Bob, and Stitch's dad was there, and so he gets in the car with him, and the three of them, they go off to the hospital. The rest of us go back to camp, and we find out later what happens. So at the hospital, Stitch's dad still hasn't seen the injury. He gets a little queasy with some of these things, and especially when it's your own kid, it can really cause a lot of panic. And so he's trying to figure, well, he sees Bob standing there looking at it, eating a sandwich, and so he thinks, all right, how bad can it be? He forgot that Bob was a vet. So Bob had seen a lot of gross stuff. And so Stitch's dad comes around and just about gets a little woozy at seeing it. So you get him stabilized, and he decides, well, I'm going to have to call I'm going to have to call my wife and tell her what happened. So he gets on the phone, calls her and says, hey, so there's been a little accident and Stitches got hurt. And he's okay, but they're going to have to put a few stitches in him. And she's like, well, that's all right. Thanks for telling me. I'm going to a movie. I'll talk to you when I get back. So she goes to the movie like a few hours later before she calls, like, hi, how's Stitches doing? He goes, well, he's doing fine. He's in surgery now. She, wait, how did it go from he'll need a few stitches to he's in surgery? And he's like, okay, let me explain. They go to put stitches in him, and they found there are some moss and rocks in there. So they had to go put him under so that they can clean that stuff out and make sure it doesn't get infected. So yes, he's in surgery, but it's really just a glorified cleaning is all it is. So well, I'll talk to you when you get back. So they patch him up, and we're all at church the next day, hearing the report from the camp out. And the guy at the pulpit says, well, we're really thankful that Stitches is okay, and that he's recovering well, and we're also thankful that we got Bob back. Stitch's dad and Bob they're pretty good friends. So Stitch's dad, he looks over at Bob, and he sees Bob's wife is talking to him. He's like, uh-oh, he didn't tell her. So after church, he calls Bob, and he's like, hey, Bob, how are you doing? He's like, I'm doing fine. Did you tell her? I did now, and I gotta go. So Bob was okay. We saw him after that, and he looked still all right, but he's a vet. Maybe he just patched himself up for whatever happened. So I guess we're kind of going on what happened to Bob. I guess I didn't ever explain that. So when he jumped off the cliff, everyone else who's jumping off is doing cannonballs and stuff. He did a pencil dive, so he just goes straight down into the water and gets caught in an undercurrent. And as he's in this undercurrent, he gets shoved up under the outcrop that we were jumping off of, and he can't get out. So he remembered having thought of just let the current take you. So he just kind of relaxes, and the current pushes him out from underneath the outcrop, and he opens his eyes and he sees a light, and he just swims up to it, and he's fine. All right, and so that's what happened to him. And well, he survived the undercurrent. You have to make sure to probably tell your wife, so she doesn't find out secondhand, because I think he's probably more in danger with her than he ever was from the current. But yeah, so those are just a couple of the camp stories I have that pair very nicely together, and just the learning experiences from them. So thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed these camping stories. I got the links in the YouTube description system working, so you can just go down there and you can read Gnosis by clicking on the link, and that'll take you straight to the Gnosis homepage. I have my Patreon there as well, which for $5 a month you can get the voting page for Gnosis, and for $10 a month you can get the voting page and an exclusive $10 drawing. I've been told that people have been enjoying those $10 drawings, and that they are worth the money. So I'm really excited to hear that. So go get the $10 drawing. Tell me, what do you think of it? I'll be really appreciative for that money. That has helped me out a lot as I've tried to be able to do comics and these stories and stuff and keep them going. I also got some of my social media in there if you want to find me on there. I'm not on there a whole lot, but it's there if that works for you. So thank you for listening. Thank you for enjoying this drawing. I hope you enjoyed the drawing. And remember, I guess if you're going on campouts, to have fun, be safe, tell your wife if trouble occurs, and most importantly, watch out for baby buffalo. Thank you, and I hope you have a good day. Bye.